Thank you very much. I'm just getting the right version of our presentation. So we start. Just to introduce myself, I'm Antony Dore, and I'm the editor of BBC London Television News, regional news based in the capital. And later on, we are going to be talking a little bit about. That looks more promising, doesn't it? Okay, so there we are. Later on, we'll mention the fact that there's going to be a data journalism workshop, separate data journalism workshop, which we are hosting and being run jointly with the BBC and SVT. But that was an excellent, I thought, really interesting presentation of the practicalities the practitioners and journalists go through to get data journalism on air and to viewers. I'm thinking more of a kind of editors and managerial point of view, because it's a new challenge for everybody. And this is the editor's challenge, which is you have to get the right people. So up to now, we've had journalists, we've had camera people, we've had technical operators, but at the moment, you now need a whole new set of people. And if you look at some of the people who are setting up data journalism centres specifically to do this, you're talking about coders, statisticians, and designers. And here's the problem. We employ arts graduates. So I did a bit of data journalism of my own, so I looked at the last 50 people who approached me to try and get work at BBC London, which a lot of people do. And of those 50 people, only one of them had a degree, which we call a numerous degree, that would help with the kind of data analysis that is needed for this sort of thing. So there is a bit of a problem. We employ arts graduates, not geeks. You have to find people who have the expertise to make this kind of thing happen, otherwise we can't do it. So what's it all about? Well, look, data journalism, there are huge amounts of data out there now, and it's giving us huge opportunities. So just very briefly, it's estimated that 90% of the data that is in existence now has only been created in the last few years. It's because, obviously, technological changes and improvements, and the fact that now everybody, I think half the world's adult population now has an internet-enabled mobile phone. You're using apps, you're generating huge amounts of content, you're generating huge amounts of information, and all of that is stored somewhere. Also, it tends to be in Western Europe, governments getting more open, they're putting out more data sets that are freely available. But there's also many more things. You can find Google data, you can find Amazon sales data, which can give you information that if you choose to mine it and look for it and put a journalistic mind to it, you can find extraordinary stories. So this is obviously, I guess, the biggest piece of data journalism that's ever been, is the Panama Papers brought down government in Iceland. Huge amounts of data that came out of one company and has been analysed and mined all over the world for stories. Can also do extraordinarily detailed things. I'm just going to give you one little example here of something that people are working on at the moment, which is the Hindustan Times in India, which is working at getting a real-time air quality information using government information and their own information that you can use and put on your mobile phone, so you just choose the place where you are, and it will tell you the air quality where you are, something that's incredibly important for people in India, because it's constantly using live available data and putting it into a form of journalism that, for me, as an editor of a TV programme, is a very new way of presenting things. It's immersive, it's very immediate, but it's an incredibly useful thing to do, and it's the kind of thing that public service broadcasting, public service journalists, I think, perhaps ought to think about. Okay, so what roles do we need? I mentioned very briefly. Okay, you need people who can analyse statistics. Now, there may well be some people in your own team already, but you need to look in other places. Now, universities is a very good place to look. Obviously, statistics departments, mathematics departments, and we find that quite a lot of people are interested in working with journalists in a new way. And there's one particular person who helps us quite a lot with our data journalism at the BBC. Data is quite a political thing, the access to it, openness to it. There are a lot of lobby groups, NGOs that find their own data, use their own data, and it's worth keeping in touch with them. The other kind of role we need is coders. So not that many journalists are able to code. It has been argued, I've heard it argued, that it's easier to teach a journalist to code than to find a coder and turn them into a journalist. can learn these skills, and there are lots of courses out there. Your own IT department. So when you're working on your newsroom and your computer goes wrong, you ring up your IT department, you expect them to come and fix it, and that's kind of their role. We find that there are people, probably every IT department, if you rang them up and said, hey, I've got a journalistic problem, I've got a challenge here that we want to make, will you help us create some content? They will love it, because it's something that's different from coming around and in your computer. So that's a very simple, homegrown way of trying to find the right people that will help you do the coding that you need. Coding clubs. People who like coding stick together in all sorts of different ways. They meet, they have Facebook groups, they have all sorts of other social media ways of staying in touch. And a lot of them are interested in journalism and interested in accessing you as people to try and help to work with. The other thing to find, if you need a specific thing done, I'm told that if you put in your hometown and the words JavaScript developer, you will find all sorts of people who you might be able to help you out. So you can, just by doing searches and looking on, as somebody suggested earlier, Facebook groups, you can find the right people. There's a group called Hackers, which is specifically there to bring in people who know about computing with journalists. It has little branches, so it's mainly based in America, it has branches in many, many places in Europe. If you look them up, there are kind of clubs and a group that meets in many places in Europe. It can be quite useful. I'm by no means an expert in this, but there are people who are. I recommend this gentleman, a guy called Scott Klein from ProPublica, which is a website in America, who has written a very good guide to how to set up your own data journalism team. If you Google Scott Klein, ProPublica, data journalism, that comes up, and it's a very useful guide in how to try to set something up from scratch. So I just want to talk a little bit about something the BBC is doing, and the very interesting way that the kind of SVT has been using crowdsourcing. The example the BBC has got is perhaps complementary, because it's very different. We've kind of gone the other way in a sense, although we do crowdsourcing, we've gone the other way. We have a very, very small team, so the English regions department has a team of 2 people who have permanently doing data journalism that will serve everybody across the BBC. They have a professor from the university who works with them, I think, 1 day a week as well, and they bring in other people when they need to. But basically the model is that they take data, freely available data from across the UK to create stories. And they create content for, well, there are 12 regional programmes in England, create content for them, more than 30 radio stations, and national news on all outlets, because the amount of data that is now available enables you to make meaningful stories for individual places, as well as aggregating it all together to make quite a significant national story. So I'm going to give you an example of one. It's not Panama Papers. Didn't bring down any governments, but it's the kind of thing that we all find very important in regional and local news. It's libraries. So, since 2008, the kind of financial crisis, there have been lots of government local spending cuts. I'm sure you've found it in many places across Europe as well. So it turns out that a quarter of staff in libraries across the United Kingdom have lost staff, as you see the story. Now that headline was the culmination of a huge amount of work that provided stories for all sorts of people. So all those different places, 12 regional stations, regional TV stations, 30 local radio stations. There was a lot of different news, important for many different communities, generated by this work. And they did quite a nice thing where you could search your area, you could find out, putting in your local area, how many libraries closed. They've done all sorts of different things. This is just one example. They also published the raw data, which can be slightly intimidating to those who aren't familiar with it, but I think the other thing is being open and transparent about it, putting the raw data out there for people who really want to search it, interrogate it, and possibly even take it and use it for their own journalism. So, for instance, a slightly bewildering chart of all the different places in the UK, and looking at how the number of libraries closed down, the number of people who volunteered to help keep them open increased. which was the culmination of a large amount of data scraping and data cleansing and data gathering. Yeah, and this story went all over the media in the UK. All sorts of places picked it up. This is the work of two people with a couple of extra helpers, generated quite a lot of different stories. Okay, so here's the advert. So we're doing Data Journalism Workshop on October the 21st with SBT and ourselves at New Broadcasting House in London. So there'll be some workshops about specific skills that people may want to acquire around data journalism. We're going to bring in people from other organisations. We hope to get someone from Google, some of the very good experts in data journalism from across the UK. And I'm interested actually in hearing from people about what they would like to have in what would you like to learn? So that would be one of the questions that I would throw out to you guys. Now, that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Anthony.